Hello, welcome, Mayor Thoms. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining our conversation this evening. Well, it's my pleasure to welcome the Mayor of Rock Island. Thanks for being with us tonight, Mike.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to hearing what the City of Rock Island's experience has been during this COVID crisis. We chatted a few days ago and kind of had a preliminary conversation. So you just highlighted like all the needs that the city has right now. How are small businesses doing in Rock Island?
Some are doing fine and some are struggling. It's a mixed bag as far as that goes. A number of them applied for the federal programs that are out there, the PPP and the CARES and the SBA loans and forgivable loans. And so a good portion have done that. But unfortunately, that money doesn't always arrive real quick. And so the City of Rock Island and the DARI, a private economic development organization, or people, and we created these grants that small businesses can apply for. And the first week we got the applications in. It was then the second week we got some checks out, and now the third and fourth week we got almost around 50 checks out there, almost $100,000 to small grants to help bridge the gap for some of these small businesses. So for some of them, that's going to be fine, and that'll get them by to help pay the rent or the utility bill. Some it'll be just a gap until the federal money rolls in. Unfortunately, there could be some that don't make it through this, and it's going to be a mixed bag. A lot of them are trying to be creative and doing the curbside for the restaurants. Even the bars are getting creative and selling some of their inventory of liquor, the beer and that sort of thing. Yeah. So everybody's trying to get creative to get some income. Overall, it's going very smoothly. Just it's a sad thing to have.
Yeah. Well, it's great to hear that at your level, at the municipality level, the city level, you're also making effort because you're much closer to seeing the needs of businesses and finding out what people in the community need, the workers, everyone. So being so close to it, it's great to hear that you guys have been able to take action and giving grants to businesses.
Right. And let's let people know also, most of the money came from HUD, CDBG grant money. That they issued to us specifically for the COVID-19 epidemic, pandemic. And so, unfortunately, that slowed things down a little bit because they still have some rules and regulations that need to be met for them. For example, it's a reimbursable program, so they have to pay the rent, and then this program reimburses that. So it's still a little bit of some hair around it, so to speak, that it makes it not real friendly, because some people don't even have the cash to pay it the first time.
Right.
And so that's a problem. They did loosen the rules a little bit, but in my opinion, still not quite enough. I mean, they're worried about people taking advantage of a system, and I'm sure that would happen. But that slowed us down. So because we had to go back out to all the applicants, have them fill out another form, and turn in some further documentation to meet the CDBG regulations. But that's why we had 120 applicants. We've gotten 50 of them taken care of as of the end of last week. So that's why there's still some more in the process going through that. So it's taken a little longer than we anticipated, but we'll get there. We're helping hold some hands and hopefully help everybody out.
Yeah, well, it just kind of highlights the need to limit that government bureaucracy.
That's exactly. We need to eliminate some of the red tape. There's no doubt, and I don't want to repeat, but that unfortunately that does sometimes open it up for people to take advantage of things. That's the purpose of some of the red tape. But in cases like this, especially, you just need to take those losses. You just need to go with it. A majority of the people are going to appreciate it, use it wisely, and everything else. And you can't let those people suffer because of a few.
Yeah. So, what are the effects on Rock Island, the city, that you guys have lost? Like the sales tax, that's one of your main sources of revenue as a city. How will this COVID crisis really impact the operations of Rock Island?
It's going to impact us for years to come, unfortunately.
Mm.
not just short term. It's going to be a long term effect. We have projected at this point to have lost by the end of April here, $2.5 to $3 million in revenue. And that's in a number of different areas. The casino, Jumer's Casino,
Mm.
we do receive monies from them on a regular basis. And that was probably one of the largest single hits that we'll take, the tune of $300,000+ a month
Mm.
that cost the city. But then you have the sales tax from fuel, sales tax from food and beverage. And then we receive part of the state sales tax, that's 6.25%. We receive some of that back. So we're losing out on that. And then there is other, I'll call it smaller things. Not, I would say small. It's $85,000 to $100,000 in, I'll call it late fees, transaction fees, water, turning on water for people, etc. Those
Mm-hmm.
kind of fees add up to almost $100,000 that we'll lose. So it's different areas but it adds up to 2.5 to 3 million. Now we're going into the month of May, and we got another month's worth. So I don't know if it'll exactly double, but we do anticipate it to go up from there.
Wow.
That
Wow.
major hit. And then once again, I guess the effect, and not to ramble on here, but FEMA offers some money. Once again, the federal government has offered some reimbursement to the city, but that's for reimbursement of expenses,
Mm-hmm.
not loss of revenue. And there's the difference: is the city in itself does not have a great deal of expense due to COVID-19. We had to buy some PPE or protection products.
Has Island been hit very hard at all?
Say it again.
Has Rock Island had many cases of COVID?
We don't know. They report it by county and not by city.
Okay.
We do know of some just through the media, social media, and that have happened in Rock Island, the city of Rock Island. But I could not report how many that is, or if it's more or less than other cities, or whatever it is, because we don't get that information. And I'm not sure they even track that information. They may, but it doesn't come to us this far. But I'm not even sure they track that. They try to track it by county.
Right. Right.
And so I couldn't answer that question. But our police department, fire department, need the PPEs. And so we had to go and purchase some of those. There is some overtime and some wages associated with it. So we're working on getting reimbursed for that. We also did send home some employees. For example, half of Public Works, or roughly thereabout, are on a rotating basis. So half of them are home this week and half are working. Next week, it's the opposite way. And we are keeping track of those expenses because we're not getting any productivity out of the ones that are at home. So we are classifying those as COVID-19 expense. So we anticipate to get it reimbursed for that part of the wages throughout this session. A number of people at City Hall are working from home. There are some people that come in accounting and our community economic development department, inspections and that sort of thing. We have to issue building permits still. And so some people are there, but it's very, very few people. The rest are all working from home. And so I guess where I'm going with that is those type of expenses we anticipate being reimbursed from through FEMA. But that is very small compared to the revenue that we're losing that helps fill potholes, that helps patch streets, that helps put it, fix street lights, capital helps buy a fire truck or whatever it is.
Right.
That's what we're losing revenue on. That's not going to be replaced by any program as of yet.
Right. And help me understand, and help everyone watching understand how that stretches out into the future. So missing out on all this sales revenue during COVID crisis, like you said, it's the potholes, it's the fire trucks, that kind of thing. But walk me through how it affects us for years to come.
Okay, well, so start out with that I'm trying to think which rabbit hole to go down with this answer. But good financial practices would like to have 90 days of cash on hand. And with that, if we have to pull out of our reserves and lower that to do some of this work, now to rebuild that reserve back up, you can't do that in 1 year. It takes multiple years to save. And so you have to cut some capital expenses or employment for a number of years to try to build that pot back up where it's good financial sense and also for bond ratings, amongst other things, or for other rainy days like this. So that part is years in the future. The other part that we learned from 2008 and 9 recession was the property values go down, which means you receive less property taxes. Now, once again, we're always in the rears of that, so you won't see that this tax year at property tax. You may see it then next year, and then how many years does it take to build that appreciation back up in people's homes? So you could have multiple years of lower property tax dollars received because of the lower value on people's homes.
Yeah. Well, what's coming up for me, the sense that I'm getting is, man, we got to get our economy working again. Like, let's get back to work and
That's exactly, and that's where we think here at City Rock Island that the governor should take a look at county by county of opening things back up, a lot like Iowa's doing. Now the question is when. That's still the open question. If it should be today, you could probably find a lot of people it should happen today. You'll find some that say, no, be conservative. Don't want this spiking again. Hold off. So you're not going to make everybody happy when you determine when. That's the unfortunate. But if you're talking economy and trying to help people through for many years in the future, the sooner the better. That's for sure. Now, interesting enough, people think that, if you open up a restaurant, but you still have social distancing and you only allow 50% of the square footage to be used, restaurants have a tough time making money with only 50% of their square footage. They were on thin margins when it was full. So if you take half of that volume away still, even though they're open, but now they've got increased expenses. They got their labor back in there. They've got the utility bills, rent, if that kicks back in. And they don't bring enough volume in to pay those expenses that kicked in. Sometimes they're better off being totally shut down than running at 50%.
Yeah, I talked to a business owner this morning. They had opened a restaurant February 1st, and then all of this happened, and here we are. And they're like, Esther, we put our life savings into it, and we're not going to be able to reopen because it was too early for the restaurant to have really gained momentum and started earning a lot of revenue. So they were up a creek, and it was a hard call this morning to talk with those business owners and just find out how to help them. And
it is. We don't know of any at this point closing in Rock Island on it because of it yet. A guy could speculate that somebody, someplace, or several are going to do that, but the ones we've been communicating with are hanging in there and being creative and to reopen. But there's no doubt there's a number of them that were, working day to day on capital. They just didn't have much capital to work with, and they're going to be struggling even when they open up. You got to remember, when your restaurant opens up, they have to replenish all the food that they threw away or got rid of one way or the other. And those distributors are wanting to get paid when they deliver it. So you got to have cash to be able to buy the food to even open up, not knowing what the volume you're going to have. That it's a unknown.
Yeah, we do have one question from Craig. Craig asked, how much influence does a mayor have in terms of being required to enforce various aspects of the governor's executive order? What is your role as a mayor and how you work with and interact with the state of Illinois?
My role personally as a mayor is very nominal. It's more of helping interpret the guidelines that the governor set out, whether it be with the executive orders. Not everything, as you maybe have seen or people seen, is explained well in the executive order. So they come out with guidelines afterwards. And each day almost that changes. So my role is to help interpret those for people. I'm the liquor commission, so sometimes that falls into that role and have to make ruling on whether that's allowed or not. But so that's a role I play. And then just once again, talking to people in comfort, helping them navigate the grant applications, that sort of thing. Really, where the city comes into it, it becomes the police department. And if they see something that isn't working, isn't correct, people are gathering in large groups, as an example, they then I'll say at this point, are been instructed and taken the avenue of, hey, let's politely just go ask them to break it up. Let's move on
Mhm.
and live with the guidance. And they'll do that several times and try to. Only if somebody gets really stubborn and obstinate about something would they have the ability to fine somebody.
Mm.
They're not going to arrest anybody. They would do a fine, but that hasn't happened yet. We don't anticipate that to happen. We're taking a very, I'll call it soft move to that, and just we're not running around looking for issues. It's only
Mhm.
if it's reported or obvious. And so far, it really hasn't happened. We're not aware of anything happening at this point.
Great.
So I don't answer
Yeah.
the question, but the mayor himself does not have any say so.
Well, one final question. How do we prepare better the next time? Like, what are the opportunities that you see at the city level for us to handle crises like this?
It's a difficult question to answer on an aspect of, boy, you just never know when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so it's never been the city's responsibility or role to buy and store and warehouse for other people PPE equipment, for
Mm-hmm.
example.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we may load up a little more than for our own use, a little more in the future. May take say, maybe those kind of things we need to double the inventory or whatever. But you got to be careful on how much dollars you tie up, and that's the other problem is that you could end up spending tens of thousands of dollars buying this inventory or more, and never knowing. You could go another 50 years and not. You could go two.
Yeah.
You just don't. But we'll evaluate that when this thing is over with and what we went through and needed. And once again, there's different types of, I'll call it crisis or recessions. I mean, this is an epidemic or pandemic, but last time in 2008 and 9, it was an economy type of situation. It was, the banks and that sort of thing. So it's a different type of role. So how do you prepare for those different things?
Yeah.
I would say that maybe we try to continue to once again make sure that we're good stewards of rebuilding our reserve.
Mm-hmm.
We had close to 90 days, and over the last couple of years, that's worked down to around 70 days, give or take. And so I think that we need just to, unfortunately, continue to tighten our belt and save more and build that to a bigger cushion for these type of things. It'd be one thing. Other than that, it's worked pretty smooth. We've had plans in place, implementing people to be sent home, working from home. We had to buy a few cameras and a few things, but it was very nominal for what we had to do and to get people to work from home. And I say that Tim, our IT guy, is probably sitting there saying, "What do you call nominal?" But really, we lost very little productivity with the people working home.
That's great.
Employees have been very, very good and flexible of working different hours, longer hours, conditions of home. People think, oh, I work at home, what a great deal. That's not as easy as some people think.
Right. Right.
You've got kids and kids are home and trying to homeschool or whatever it is, e-learning. That could be a challenge in balancing that all out. So we commend our employees for adapting to that. And we've taken care of all the essentials. The city is still getting the sewer taken care of and the drinking water, the garbage picked up, the lease picked up. We're taking care of essential things, doing major work. If the water main break, we take care of it. So for the most part, we've done just about everything that we need to be doing. It's unfortunately in the future, and I'm doing a little bit of repeating, but we're going to have to maybe not buy a couple dump trucks or pickups, kick that can down the road, which still could be expensive. We are not going to basically right now have a hiring freeze. We have some key roles that we haven't got people in place in. City clerk, community economic director. We don't have placed our chief building inspector is not. There's an open position. There's 3 just to mention. That we're putting a hiring freeze and so saying we're just got to cut back and everybody has to double up and do some extra work. So that's going to be felt for quite a while. And building our budget for 2021 is going to be quite a challenge. We are going to work very hard in not raising property taxes. That's really the only, or close to the only way that we can get any impact is property taxes, unfortunately, unless the state comes through with some type of incentive for us.
Yeah. Well, I know even at the federal level, they're talking about how can we help municipalities. So that's something I'm tracking. Kind of while while you're talking, what comes to mind is that the job of a mayor is almost like being a ninja. You have to be prepared for anything that comes your way at any time.
That's correct. And whether it be the pandemic like now, whether it be the 2008 deal, but actually even on a daily basis, there's people that have problems and have issues. The sewer backed up and they feel it's the city's responsibility, researching that for them, holding their hands to a certain degree and help them walk through it. Sometimes the answer is we do. Sometimes the answer is unfortunately we don't. But there's a lot of different issues like that. And so, yes, I got to say that that's a role that the mayor plays of trying to help facilitate those with the city staff and the city manager. I'm going to talk about, you talked about federal government helping out, and it'd be nice to have the federal government. You and I talked about this helping out, but everybody thinks, oh, it's the federal government's, their money. Well, that's taxpayers' money.
Right.
Just the money the city spends and the state is spending and the federals are spending, that's our tax dollars.
Right.
So even though it's nice for the city to receive some federal money, even if it's to help replace revenues, how are they going to pay that back, those bonds that they sell or borrow, the money they borrow? And that's by taxing us more, cutting expenses, whatever it is, to make sure that, once again, generations to come don't have these huge debts to pay back, that we can't do infrastructure programs because we're paying these programs back. The 74 Bridge is an example. It's a large capital project that the federal government get too big a debt. They can't do those kind of things.
And this crisis is certainly highlighting dramatically the need for fiscal responsibility in government. Just this conversation is highlighting it, but more broadly, we see why taking on too much debt at the federal level puts us in a bad situation when we actually need to pass stimulus packages for $2 trillion. Like, it's not going to be sustainable much farther into the future. Like you said, we're already passing this cost on to our grandkids and our grandkids. So we have to be fiscally responsible.
We do. I mean, I'll say as a city, a state, county, I mean, there isn't any municipality or government body that should not be looking very, very hard at where they can cut expenses. And here's the, I'll say, unfortunate side of it. The biggest expense that most governments have is people. Payroll is typically one of, if not the closest to, the highest expense. So how can we work smarter with fewer people? How can we supply the services to the public in all levels more efficiently? Whether it's using technology and doing things online, et cetera. I don't know. I mean, that's some of them, but we need to work on cutting out the red tape, bureaucracy, and the people associated with that to streamline the governments, so we do not have to increase taxes.
Our government's working for the people at all levels.
That's exactly right.
So Lisa says, great job, Mayor Thoms, with all that you've done. So you've got some props. I just wanted to share that with you.
Well, good. Well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed this position. I'm having fun putting a few hours in, but that's okay. We want to be transparent, welcoming, and accessible to the public. In theory, not even just City of Rock Island, but any city, anywhere. We want to be transparent and welcoming.
Thank you. On that note, how can people reach out to you or the City of Rock Island if they have questions or need assistance? What's a good way to contact you?
I'll give you 3 different ways. There's email, and my direct one is thoms.mike@rigov.org. So it's THOMS.MIKE@RIGOV.org. My direct line to my office is 309-732-2013. And my cell phone number, which is accessible for anybody, is 309-644-1570. And so that's those 3 ways they can get me directly. They can call my assistant and schedule an appointment. I'll sit and talk or listen, call to anybody. One thing that you and I did talk about, not to belabor this, and maybe there's other questions and run this on, but was working with other officials elected officials, city officials, and everything else. I am on a call, minimum of 2 calls a week since this epidemic has, with a number of people. There's about 80 to 90 people on each one of the calls, and that's with both sides of the river. So you have all 5 cities on the call. 5 cities being Rock Island, Moline, East Moline, being Davenport, Bettendorf, and actually more than that. Then there's the 2 counties, but Milan's on there, Eldridge is on there, LeClaire's on there, Silvis is on there. So all those cities, along with the health departments of both sides of the river, along with the hospitals, along with the community foundation. So twice a week, and we may be taking that down to once a week. But since it started, we started with 3 times a week, went to 2 times a week, and now maybe just go to once. We're in communication to make sure that we're coordinated throughout the whole Quad Cities.
Great.
Things that are happening. And then to the minimum, then we have other meetings. I talk to the mayors individually almost on a weekly basis. We're working on a project right now, starting with the Illinois Quad Cities, with a software program that might help small businesses. And we hope to reveal that here in the next couple of days, that we're working together in conjunction with other cities that would be helpful. So there's a number of conversations going on with the city officials. I hate to say daily, but at least once a week, if not more.
Awesome. That's so great to hear that there's coordinated effort and we're all rowing in the same direction here in the Quad Cities. So
yes, that's exactly. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to wrap up and say thank you. I really, really appreciate you coming on. And I think this is such an important perspective to hear, like at your level, at the city level, how we're being impacted. So thank you so much, Mayor Thoms, for talking with us today.
Anytime. Good luck with you. And anybody want to get a hold of us, we'll listen to suggestions they have or answer questions.
Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for being part of the conversation. Thank you, Mayor Thoms, so much. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.